This is Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
This is my career, Mom.
What career?
Music video director.
Yeah, right? You can't even hold that thing steady.
Yeah, it's supposed to look like this.
Whoa, whoa. What was that?
What was that?
What the hell?
What was that? Oh.
That lightning?
Whoa.
Man.
Look at that.
What is that?
What? I swear to God, that's a f***ing UFO, man.
Where is it?
Shh. Camera, come on.
That's an alien.
Give it back.
What? Oh, they're cutting open one of the cows.
What?
They see us. One of them's looking right at me. Oh, they see us.
Ah! Come on! Where's the camera? Hold on! Camera, keep up! This way! Over here! Ryan! Come on! We need to get the hell out of here!
What's the matter?
Call 911!
What's going on?
F***ing aliens out there! They saw us, then they fired at us. Stop it! I don't think we're gonna make it.
Welcome to Somewhere in the Skies, brought to you by the E1 Podcast Network, and now also being broadcast on the KGRA Global Radio Alliance. I'm your host, Ryan Sprague. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, as for that soundbite you just heard, I should probably explain. In 1998, at the age of 14, I remember flipping on the TV one evening just after a late dinner, and I watched a TV special in which a home video showed a family out in the woods investigating what appeared to be a plane crash near their farmhouse property. But they soon realized this was anything but a plane crash. It was a craft from another world, and the occupants of the craft were soon to come face to face with the McPherson family. The rest of the evening played out in the most terrifying real-life and real-time alien encounter imaginable. The TV special was titled Alien Abduction, Incident in Lake County. It was one of the highest rated and viewed specials to air on the UPN network. It even involved actual UFO researchers giving commentary to the events that played out. And even though I'd eventually learned that this special was completely fictional and was inspired by an original version created and directed by the same person, I still wanted to believe that the McPherson family had encountered otherworldly beings and caught it all on camera. Today, I talk to Dean Alioto, the creator and director of both Incident at Lake County and the original film that inspired it, UFO Abduction, the McPherson Tape. Dean brings us through the fascinating journey of making these two films, the aftermath and reactions by both the UFO community and the mainstream at large. And then we talk about the conspiracies wrapped around both him and the films, leading all the way up to his most recent presentation at the 2018 International UFO Congress and beyond. So, without further ado, here is my jam-packed interview with filmmaker and budding UFO researcher, Dean Alioto. Dean, thank you so much for joining me on Somewhere in the Skies today.
You are so welcome.
Before we even get into the crux of the interview, I have to tell you that when I was, I believe, 14 years old, I turned on UPN and I watched as this family was being overtaken by aliens. Now, as a budding UFO buff at the time, I was excited to see something like this on television, but also terrified. I thought this thing was real, and so did so many other people around the world. And it terrified me, man. That was Incident at Lake County. And then I learned that this was not the first time that this had been, in the zeitgeist. You had made a previous film about Incident at Lake County. So today we're going to talk all about that. But before we even do that, I have to ask, man, How did you even get interested in the topic of UFOs, specifically alien abduction? Let's start with the origin.
Okay, the origin. We're going back, cue the going back in time music. When I was a kid, I had a crap load of energy. I was classified as being hyperactive. And so, which would have nothing to do with my parents' divorce. I mean, moving with my father and my brothers moving with my mother. Not at all. It was hyperactivity. So my father's doctor had me on 10 milligrams of Ritalin. For kids, Ritalin is like kind of a almost a downer. It's a relaxant, if you will. For adults, especially those in college who have used it before, it's like speed. So I would be on that during the day, and then that apparently I still had too much energy, so they put me on double the dosage. That didn't work, so they put me on 3 times. And what that did to me is it made me literally a zombie during the day. I didn't eat as much. So actually, when I moved back with my brothers 3 years later, my younger brother, who was 2 years younger than I was, so I would have been 9 when I moved back, was taller than me. And so during this period, what would happen is from ages 7 to 9, I would be during the day, I'd completely be out. And then at night, the Ritalin wore off. And so what happened then was I would boomerang back. And so all of a sudden it would kick into this energy, so I couldn't sleep. So it's very important for kids to sleep. That's where they grow. That's why my growth had been stunted during that period. And so my father's remedy for this was a black and white Sony TV. So I had it on the dresser, and so I would watch TV shows at night at UHF, stuff like that, whatever channels I could get. There weren't much at the time. And so I got a chance to see all these classic sci-fi movies, and I found myself really digging them from, The Day the Earth Stood Still to The Thing, the original, to Outer Limits, all of that stuff. I could not eat it up quick enough. Also, I had this window that looked out over this, it was kind of like I want to say like a lot, a little meadow and a kind of a lot, and you could see the stars. This is in Sacramento. And so I found myself constantly staring out there, like I wanted to project myself out of, the sorrows of a broken family, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so doing that, I was fixated. I don't know why. And if you go to a alien abduction support group, they're going to greatly insist that it's because they were talking to me, reaching to me. Regardless of that, that was kind of, it trained me to look beyond our existence here and to consider alternatives and to kind of broaden my spectrum of what I was considering as our life here. Incidentally, later on when I moved back with my mother had discovered this diet called the Feingold diet, which unfortunately died when he died. But basically what it is you remove all artificial colors and flavors from a kid's diet. And then, because it turns out that I have a reaction to that. And so I did have an abundance of energy, but it's because we were eating, red flavored Jell-O and all that stuff, all the processed food that was eaten in the 70s. Anyway, long story short, that stargazing, even without a telescope, stayed with me all through, growing up. And then when I saw In Search Of, that kicked it into a new gear where it was like, okay, I'm interested in Bigfoot. I'm interested in ghosts, Loch Ness Monster, the Bermuda Triangle, and aliens was like the top of the top. And then I saw this TV movie, a rerun of this TV movie called, what's it called? It was the Barney and Benny Hill story. Mm-hmm, the book was called Interrupted Journey. I forgot the name of the TV movie. The UFO Incident, I think it was called.
Yes.
And with James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons. And that was the first time I had seen the kind of stereotypical gray alien, the shorter alien with the big eyes and bald head. So that was a whole new, item on the menu that I gobbled up. And then Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That was amazing. It was amazing because unlike all of the other sci-fi movies I had seen before, this one was spiritual. This is about someone who had a calling. And I felt the same way as a budding filmmaker. I felt like that was my calling. I needed to express myself in a creative way. And here was someone who kept saying, he would see shapes and stuff that was tied in somehow visually. There was some synchronicity, some connection to a bigger purpose. And anytime you want to work in any kind of medium, whether it's as writing books, writing plays, music, you're trying to communicate and you're trying to give way to ideas. And the bigger ideas, the better. And here was a film that was, a communion between our species and a greater species, which is interesting because it's like meeting a higher intelligence. The problem, I think, and I'm going off on a little tangent here. The problem, I think, with most people on the planet is we're here. It's hard. It's hard living on this planet day in and day out. But when it comes to things like having faith of getting through the day or having faith just in general, the irony is that there's more religion that's there, where people believe in religion and follow the credo and stuff and the rules, if you will, than there are people who believe in extraterrestrials. Now we have 83%, the polls are 83% of the population believes in UFOs and aliens and believes that we've probably even been visited. 5% believe they've actually seen UFOs and had their own experiences. So that is, while those numbers are huge, it's not something that affects everyone's day-to-day in life. But religion, for a lot of people, does. There is more evidence, compounded more evidence, stacked up to support actual visitations from a higher intelligence. I mean, you could say God and angels and stuff is a higher intelligence, obviously, but there's more evidence to support that, to support other civilizations that are beyond our comprehension, whether they're coming from other planets, other dimensions, the future, the past. And so for me, this is a way for us to kind of get out of our hubris of our, planets and where we are and what our, places in it. And I think that when you start looking outside of that, like all the syndrome that astronauts have, where they go up and they see how small the actual planet is and how we're one big village, and they come back, then maybe we'll stop. The more we can go there and look outside of that and look within, I think the more we'll stop treating the planet like a Motel 6. That was a wild-ass tangent, dude.
Oh, my God, I loved it. Are you kidding me? No, I love veering off the path.
You were asking how I got into it. So anyway, that's kind of those films, cinema, especially Close Encounters, set me off on my path. And so when it was time for me to make my first film, which I had to make, by the way, by age 25.
Why is that?
Well, Spielberg, Lucas, Orson Welles, classic, Citizen Kane, greatest movie, considered the best movie of all time. Mm-hmm. All of these filmmakers made their first film before or by 25. So I thought, well, if I'm going to have a shot at this and be taken serious, I need to do that as well, which is just ridiculous. Good ideas, when they come to you, you can't force them. And so while I was 24 years old on the precipice of turning 25, I did not have any idea. I didn't know what the hell I was going to shoot, and I had no money. So a buddy of mine that I'd gone to high school with said, hey, I want to be a producer. And I'm like, great. And he said, so I want to produce your film. And I said, great. Do you have any money? He's like, well, I got $6,500. And so I asked him again, do you have any money? So he said, no, I've got that. Can we do something for that? And I flippantly said, yeah, we can make a home video for that. That's not enough. Sorry. And so I went on trying to, think of other ideas and stuff. And then I read the book Communion. That knocked me on my ass. Yeah. I had been a big fan of horror and sci-fi fiction, and Stephen King. There was nothing scarier than that. And then I read Communion, and I was like, this is horrifying. This is a whole new dimension of horror because it's based on someone, whether this happened or not, that he believes this happened. And because he's such a great writer, Whitley Strieber, it was compelling and riveting and sucked you in and took no prisoners. So after reading that, I thought, God, I really want to show what an abduction is like. Because except for that the TV movie, the UFO incident in 75, and then in 77, where we see little Barry kidnapped through the little door trap in the kitchen, that was all we ever saw, really, of abductions. And so getting like full on, embedded in this, I thought, okay, I really want to, not only do I want to experience this without actually getting the anal probe, but I want to be able to convey it to people. I want to use my craft, my tools to show what it would be like. And then it all of a sudden clicked in where it was like, the best way to do that is to shoot as a documentary. And so, you could go to This Is Spinal Tap version and have people, looking at footage and stuff and talking about it, which had already been done with Holocaust cannibals. I think that was in 83. Mm-hmm. And we're around 88, 89 right here on this film that I'm talking about, that I was doing. And so I thought, all right, what if I shoot it as a home video? What if I have a 16-year-old who just got a new video camera, and which would be the Betamax, the one that Marty McFly had in the future. And so I'll set it in 83, even though we're going to shoot it in 89, because I wanted to have the feeling of this video had been around for a little bit. So, and I thought, okay, so I need an event, because I just don't want to go out and start, having aliens flying down and everything. So I thought, all right, well, let's set it up. We'll set some normalcy. We'll get to know the characters, and then we'll introduce the inciting incident.
Holy shit, what the hell was that? It's a spaceship, Mike. I know it. It's a fucking spaceship. No way. Bullshit. It's not a spaceship. Holy what shit. Is it then? You guys are gonna get the fuck out of here. No, man. I think it's us. They're looking at us. Get the fuck out of here.
And so the other thing I knew that I really wanted to work with themes, and it's always important to me on any story I tell, is family. And when I had seen Close Encounters, that there was some of that, obviously, where he was dealing with his family and him not wanting to grow up, the Roy Neary character, but also E.T. Mm-hmm. Now, E.T. was the thing that cemented my decision to, I knew I wanted to work in the film business. I don't know if it was writing or whatever, but when I saw E.T., here was the broken family. Here's the middle child, the messed up middle child, which was me, the single mom. It was my life, my childhood. And then it was injecting aliens into it. So for me, it was a cocktail that knocked me, again on my ass. And so I thought I wanted to do that. I wanted to infuse that, which Spielberg is so good at.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, let's start with a birthday party, a benign event. And then there's a blackout. This is at night in a cabin in the hills. And they see a light flash by, and they go out to investigate. And so they get out there, and they come upon this ship and these aliens. They race back to tell everyone what they saw. And over the course of the night, over the course of shooting it all in one take, we see the family get abducted one by one as they're taken out. And so it was all improvised because I wanted to feel as real as possible. Again, I have to preface this. This was not trying to do a hoax. It was doing 1960s French cinema verite.
Right.
It was trying to work in a space that had not been done before, that I was aware of. I did not, I swear to God, know at the time that I'm creating or being one of the creators of a whole new narrative in filmmaking since the advent of editing. It was a gimmick. It was a $6,500 gimmick. So we actually, went and shot this thing and hired improvisational actors and pulled them together and did it all in one night.
Well, what was that like? Like the auditions for something like this. I mean, actors weren't used to this, being like, hey, so we're just going to throw you into a cabin in the woods and see what happens. We're not going to tell you certain things, I would imagine. Like this, like you said, this was the advent of found footage, man. Blair Witch wasn't around for another, 10 years or so? So
another 10 years, yeah.
Yeah. So how did, as a director, how do you approach your within like your auditions and whatnot, approach the actors to be like, this is what we're doing. Like, what can you give me? I'm interested in that aspect of it.
The skill set that I used for that was complete ignorance. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was making it up along because my experience at that point in organizing a production had been as a viewer, as an auditor. I had a chance to work on. I worked on the last Dirty Harry film. I worked on for a day shooting stills for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So I got a chance to see Spielberg. I worked on The Doors. So I got a chance to see all my idols do it, but the level that they were doing at it was monstrous compared to my minuscule budget, which was another reason why I decided that I didn't want to try to take whatever money I had, resources, and make it look like a slick Hollywood film, because I couldn't compete. But I could compete on telling a story that was done as raw as possible. That I could own. So I thought, all right, so let's look at the math of this. We're going to be improvising based on a 10-page outline with beats. So I should probably get improvisational actors. So we had a lot of actors come in that, some were comedians and stuff, which isn't exactly the right tone, but anything, when you're tackling a big serious subject, any drama that I do, I always tend to have some levity in there. So a very funny actor who we cast as the older brother for Eric was Tommy Giovacchini. And Tommy came in, gave a very funny story, because basically what we did is we had these actors come in, and because there was no script, I said, tell me a story where something amazing happened that you've experienced. And it turns out to be a great way to get actors to loosen up and to talk and to forget about having to perform and be on. And it's a technique that I've used since then. But the greatest thing was that because we were saying, tell us a story if you have or you've heard anything about UFOs, throw that into the mix as well. And then it came to casting the mother. The actress Shirley McCall comes in and she looks at us and she says, so have you guys seen a UFO? And completely turned the tables on us.
Yeah.
And Joey Togneri, my executive producer, and I were like, no, that's why we're making this. We want to see it. And this is our way to recreate it so we can see it as well. And she's like, well, I have. And now we're leaning forward. She owns the audition. And so she's saying, all right, so I grew up in Oklahoma. And she just goes into it. She had us at Oklahoma because she's like, it's a prairie. It's out there already. She's set the tone for us. And she goes ahead and tells us this amazing story.
Because I didn't believe in UFOs either, right? I mean, that's pretty far. That's like ghosts and spooks. In 1965, we were in Oklahoma then. My husband was in the Navy. And he's stationed at NSA, National Security Agency, which is the top spook agency for the country. And we used to go to Oklahoma to spend the summer with all these children. So one summer we're there, 65, and there are lots of sightings of UFOs, and my in-laws live out in the country. So one evening, the kids and I went out to the country, and they had seen a flying saucer the night before. And I said, oh, sure, yeah, and what have you been drinking? No, nothing like that. And the kids are all outside, and they're watching for UFOs in the sky. And they're out there for maybe 30 minutes. They keep running in the house. It's there, it's there. We all fly out in the yard. And this is my in-laws, my brother and sister-in-law, and these people are really straight, right? They don't, nobody been drinking anything but coffee. Go out and look up in the sky, and I see a little airplane light going across us. Oh, that's an airplane. I said, no, over there. And I look, and there it is. It's just like the Close Encounters. I mean, there's a little town about 3 miles away. This is out on the prairie, so it's very dark. And you can see 30 miles in any direction. It's at night. And I would say it was between 2 and 3 miles away because it was between us and the little town just beyond. And the thing either has revolving lights on it or it's revolving. It's that far away. But the shape is the classic saucer shape. And there's this beam of light unlike anything I've ever seen before coming out of the bottom of the saucer. And it's moving. It's not a helicopter. It's not swamp gas. It's not a duck. It's not all the things that they were saying that summer that these UFO objects are. Well, it's just, people are mass hallucinating. Let me tell you, this beam of light's coming straight down from this thing. And we watch it for, 5 or 10 minutes. Kids are freaking, Mommy, what is it? What is it? I don't know, but it's real. And we watch it for a little while as it moves around, not like a helicopter, and it can stand completely still in midair, and then it moves like this, and it stops again. And maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and we hear an airplane motor way off in the distance. Kids, of course, want to go in and call the police. I say, no way. We're not going to get our name in the front page of the paper tomorrow as those kooks who saw the spaceship. But then the airplane motor's way off. This thing was totally silent. No noise. And you can hear really well out on the prairie. You can hear a gunshot 10 miles away. You can hear the fire trucks in town. Not a sound. Not even nothing. Airplane motors way off in the distance, and suddenly this thing is like this in the sky. And it just, from a standing... You've seen the spaceships when they take off, how they sort of hover, as they go up, and then they gather up speed. This thing is like this, and suddenly it went whoosh, and it's over South America. I mean, it disappeared in whoosh, 2 seconds. And a couple of minutes after that, 2 airplanes come, one from Vance Air Force Base and the other from Altus Air Force Base. I'll give you odds, and they circle around in the sky about where, and I thought, you fools, that thing's clear over Argentina by now. And all this time, the Army and the Air Force is saying, no such thing. They don't exist. Now, they didn't come and get us, you understand. We didn't go up ship and have an operation or anything like that. But because I've had that experience, I'm not about to say this is a hoax, or I think that the UFO cover-up is the biggest cover-up in American history.
She told the story so well, regardless of what it was about. Obviously, she got the part.
Yeah, that's a way to sell it for sure. My gosh.
Yeah, so from there, once we had our cast assembled, we did, for about a week or two, we did improvisational. We improvised the whole beat sheet, and we would, this is in San Francisco now, we would run around, we're in Pacific Heights, we would run around the block acting like we saw a ship and running back. I'm sure our neighbors thought we were batshit,
Yeah.
but we went ahead and did that so that we felt like we had a rhythm and that everyone was connecting. The chemistry was getting set of a family, and so we were used to each other and we felt comfortable, and that was probably the best thing, because the key to all filmmaking is being prepped. 90% of it is prepped. 95% of it is also casting. But we had the benefit of that. And then so when we got out there, it was like shooting a live event.
That's another thing I want to bring up, Dean. With this original version of UFO Abduction, going down the Hitchcock route. First of all, you were in this. You were a character in this version, and this was also a continual shot throughout the entire thing. So those are two other huge things I'd love to touch on before we move to the second act of your journey.
Sure.
So how was that, being the director, also being in your film, and the whole idea of having to block out this entire thing? I mean, you watch, and it's just continual the entire time, which to me, I can't even imagine what that was like as a playwright. Like I'm imagining a million stage managers everywhere being like, cue this actor, cue that light, cue this alien. I can't imagine, dude. What was that like?
Well, again, it was ignorance. It was just kind of like, well, we got to do it. And so I think I looked at it as being, when I was a kid, I would always do haunted houses every year. And I would put them on my backyard, and none of the neighbor kids would come because they were too scary. But I would put on these little shows, and I would have friends help build it and everything. So I kind of looked at it like that, like it was, hey, let's put together this little, project we're doing, like the Little Rascals. Let's, put together a show. And so it was, basically I thought, okay, so I'm going to need to cue people as we're going along this. So I had a headset on. So I'm playing the 16-year-old, and I've got the camera on my shoulder, and we shot it on 8mm video that was stereo. That was a big thing. Ooh, we have the first home video stereo camera.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've got the camera on my shoulder, got a headset, so I am cueing them. I'm like, okay, cue the light, cue the ship and aliens, cue the whatever. And I would have to lean away from the camera so that you wouldn't hear me. None of the actors were mic'd, by the way. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have the actual sound be picked up by the camera, and so I had to be very quiet. And there's a couple shots, if you listen really carefully, especially to the digitally remastered version I just did, where I'm going down a hallway and you can kind of hear me, and I'm talking. You hear a little bit of buzz of the. Okay, so get ready. Oh, we got. Okay,
no.
Action, go. And so it was a juggling act, but I'm also a drummer, and so I guess I like the coordination of having to do all these things, and being a Gemini probably. Helps if you believe in that type of thing. But so it was just, let's go by the seat of our pants. Let's just run it. And we went out there, and my ex was the alien wrangler. So we had 3 kids, and I took a playbook, a note out of the Spielberg playbook, and had kids play the aliens. And so we had a ship, and we had our aliens, and way out buried in the woods. No other lights around except for the lights that we used inside the ship. And we had a little fog machine going. So if I were these kids, I would have been pissing in my pants.
Yeah.
So my ex had a really heavy job to do. It could have gone south. We could have had renegade aliens all over the place. She corralled them. And so we got out there, and I would say, okay, cue the aliens. And by the way, the ship and the alien masks and hands were all done by this guy, amazing production designer named Bill Bowes. He did it all for $750. He did it with foam core and plywood, literally. And then I think he found some like hoses and stuff from some industrial plant. But that was it. Those are like little nuances. He went on to do the first Fantastic Four movie, did the Scooby-Doo films, and worked with Tim Burton on James and the Giant Peach. Very talented guy. So we lucked out. I mean, it was a lot of, the crew gets a lot of kudos here. Craig Patterson, who was my first AD, rocked it as well. I had to cue all of them. And then the thing that was great about it, it was challenging, but the thing that was terrific about it is that if the scene wasn't anxious enough or it was moving too fast, I could modulate the actors by bringing my energy down or bringing it up, inciting it more, instigating it more. And so that was something that I really enjoy and wish I could do more as a director, is to inject yourself in it. So you're saying, okay, now we're playing at this tempo. Now we're at this tempo and everything. So that was kind of the benefit of that I could lead them to where we needed to go. But sometimes I would get so caught up in what was going on and listening and trying to capture it that I would lose track of time. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying there was any missing time here. But,
Are you sure about that?
I haven't done regressive hypnosis, so maybe I have to talk to Yvonne Smith about that.
Yep. I think it was about 2 years ago now. I shot my first feature film, my first ever film I'd done with a director, and we'd gone around bragging that we'd shot a feature in 2 weeks, thinking we were like we'd done some amazing feat. Then I hear that you shot this thing in 1 day. I mean, that's incredible, first and foremost, especially with everything you had involved with this. I mean, I can't imagine, like, what was that like, doing this, knowing you only had this amount of time to do it, you only had the actors for this amount of time. I mean, was that any pressure on you as the director to be like, I gotta get this done in 1 day? Or is that just sort of how it played out?
Well, first of all, I'm sure your 2-week movie is much better than my movie.
Oh.
And so, second of all, it was just kind of like, this is all we have. So it's kind of like a painting party. You invite a whole bunch of people, you spring for the pizza and beer, and then everyone's working together and you hopefully are just jamming and getting it done. And at the end of the day, you've got a new coat of paint on your house. And this was at the end, except, we end up at the end of the day with a movie. Mm-hmm. So it was really just kind of like, use what you have. That was all that was on the plate for us. And so, again, it's in hindsight, I look back and I go, holy crap. I don't know if I could have done that today. I would have been too cautious about unions and guilds and stuff. I'm in the Directors Guild now. And so, I would have to have an official line producer and first AD and a second. And anyway, so there was a lot of freedom that I've not experienced since and probably won't ever. So that was kind of, it was all out of necessity, man. Mm-hmm. It was all just, this is what we have to work with. So let's do it. And then when it's done, you think, okay, we've achieved it. Yay. We're not even a tenth of the way there.
Right.
If no one sees it, then it means nothing. So at that point, it was still this home video that I had shot with my friends.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where we springboard into, like I said, the second act of this whole thing. So filming's complete. You've got this thing, sort of just lingering. You got it on your shoulders, ready to go. So what do you do next? I would imagine you try to look for someone to screen it or someone to distribute it. And that's where the story gets really interesting. I've heard you talk about this in several other interviews. So please walk us through this crazy story, man.
So the first thing we did is we had a premiere of it. And we, through a mutual friend, someone had known Jacques Vallée. And they brought him out to the premiere screening of it in San Francisco. And so Jacques lives in the Bay Area. And so Jacques came out, and I had read Dimensions and was a big fan. And I also knew that the Francois Truffaut character in Close Encounters was based on, Lacombe was based on Jacques. And so was a big fan of his. And so he came out and saw it. And he was really super, super nice. In fact, we met after, and he had said that was That was one of the most realistic portrayals of this he'd ever seen. And all I wanted to do was talk to him about aliens and UFOs, and all he wanted to do was talk about making movies with me. So we kind of had to meet in the middle. But it was great to have him see that and to see it with a live audience. The funny part, and I should have been clued in at this incident that happened, but during the screening, this buddy of mine brought his girlfriend. And at the end of the film, and I'd already introduced it, and I said what the intention was and everything, and so at the end of it, she is like, ashen faced, and she comes out and she's like, "Why is everyone laughing? Why is everyone clapping? This is awful." This family was terrorized and everything. And my buddy was trying to, tell her, no. This was real. I don't know if they got there late or something. Maybe that's probably what happened. But no,
man, it's a testament to your work.
I thought, well, that's an anomaly. That's funny, but whatever. And so Joey, again, my executive producer and I got in the car and did a road trip from San Francisco to Los Angeles to sell the movie. And so we met with all these distributors, and all of them hated it. One woman, she used to run this company called Vestron. I think it was Vestron. She was insulted. She said, "You take up my time with this home movie. What? Do you think that I have time for this? Mm-hmm. Don't ever reach out to me, talk to me again until you can make a real movie." And so we thought, well, okay, this truly is a home movie. And we met with one other person on the way out, and it didn't seem like it was a good chemistry or anything happened. We're like, whatever. We took off back, licking our wounds back home. And the next day we get a call, and the very last person we had seen said, "Hey, I think this thing is funny as all hell. I think it's great. I think it's cool. I want to release it." So we feel like we've won the lottery. We're excited. It actually has a happy ending and the story. Then 3 months later, I check in and I say, "Hey, how many units have we sold?" And he says, "Unfortunately, we did not sell any, and we won't be selling any." And I said, what does that mean? The warehouse that we have all of our master tapes in burned to the ground.
Oh, God.
And I thought he was joking at first, and he says, "No, they literally burned to the ground." I'm not saying that it was, I'm not saying he set his own thing on fire for insurance reasons, but it wouldn't be the first time that happened.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So, again, a huge hit, and we're like, that's it. At least I made my first film by 25. I got that out of it, I guess. But, time to move on. And so I continued doing directing and TV. I ended up doing a season or two of Totally Hidden Video, which was kind of funny because it's almost like hoaxing in a way. You're hoaxing people doing pranks. Mm-hmm. And then I'm working on a crime series, and then I get it in Los Angeles, and I'm commuting back and forth, and I get a call from this guy whose name is Sean David Morton, the notorious.
Yes, that's a good word to use, yeah.
SDM, the notorious SDM. And so he says, "Hey, your name came up. We're looking for someone who knows something about this found footage." That was the first time I'd heard the term found footage. This is about 94. And so I said, "Well, this wasn't found. We made it." And he said, "Okay, do you know what's been going on with your film?" And I said, "Nothing. The distribution company burned to the ground. So I don't get what this is all about." And he says, "Well, apparently a few mom and pop video stores got advanced screeners, and someone, you're telling me that it had credits. This has no credits in it. So I guess they edited off the credits and they injected it into the UFO community. It ended up at the International UFO Congress Convention, which I'd never heard of. I'd never been to a UFO convention in my life. And I thought he was, joking. And I said, "Really?" I said, "Are you serious? Because whoever did this is definitely more clever than I am." And he said, "No, it hasn't." He says, "In fact, there's a Lieutenant Colonel, Don Ware, who believes this thing is real, and UFO researcher Tom Dongo, and they both believe that this is authentic. And I'm representing a few shows that are interested in, they've tasked him with finding out who has the rights to this." And the shows were Unsolved Mysteries, hard copy, and a Fox series called Encounters. And I joked and said, "Well, I guess Unsolved Mysteries is out, right?" David said, "Not necessarily." And I said, "No, it's out. It's the mystery solved." And then we looked at hard copy, and they said, we'll do a little bump, a little 2-minute thing. And Fox says, we want to do a 6.5-minute segment and feature this as the world's greatest UFO hoax of all time, blah, blah, blah. And they seem passionate about it, which is important to a filmmaker. So we went with them.
It's easy to understand why people would enjoy hoaxing UFO encounters. What isn't easy to understand is the way they do it.
Our UFO hoax hall of shame is full of cases in point, and we admit, even we were fooled. Perhaps the most bizarre example of mistaken identity began in the fall of 1993, when copies of this videotape began to circulate among UFO enthusiasts. It begins with a birthday party, obviously shot on home video. But then, the party takes a strange turn. For 60 terrifying minutes, the panic-stricken family fights off the invading aliens. The home video ends abruptly as the aliens enter the family's home and apparently abduct them.
It had this huge following, and this is really before the internet kind of kicked in. Mm-hmm. So instead of people sending me emails, I was getting calls after the segment aired with me explaining it and showing pictures as well, behind-the-scenes stuff to kind of, de-hoax this. There were still UFO researchers from Brazil, from Japan, calling me at all hours of the night saying, and UFO fans saying they wanted to get a copy of this. That went on for a little while, and then it kind of died down. I think I just flashed to Sean wanted me to go out and help him prevent an alien abduction, now that I'm remembering. Videotape it. I guess you can prevent these things. I didn't.
There have been manuals written about that, apparently. Apparently, yeah. I haven't gotten my hands on them yet, so maybe I should.
The Dummy's Guide to Preventing Alien Abductions.
Yeah.
And so that was fun for a while, and then that kind of died down, and then I was working on the Stephen J. Cannell crime series, and the head writer of the show says, hey, I heard about this thing that you have. I want to see it. And this started the whole second phase of my, weirdness with UFO abduction found footage movies.
So yeah, this was what, in 98 when this really started to take form, Dean? An opportunity arose for you. So how did that sort of come to be? This, again, I love the 2 acts break as a playwright. This is, your life is playing out on the stage, and I'm loving it, man. So yeah, give it to me.
No pressure. Okay.
None at all.
So this would have been 96 now. I'm going to say 96.
96.
So he wants to see it. I show it to him. He says, I can get us a TV movie deal from this. And I flippantly say, right, Paul. This is Paul Chitlick. I say, right, Paul. And I said, I want a story by credit. You can write the teleplay. I'll direct it and we'll produce it together. And he goes, okay. And so the next day he calls me and says, we have a meeting at Dick Clark Productions. And so I'm intrigued and I'm like, all right. So we go there and we walk in and we meet Neil Stearns, who's the head of the TV movie department. All we say is, Paul walks in and he says, hey, Neil, I want you to meet my friend Dean. We've got a project we want to show you. He's like, what is it? We don't say anything. We walk over to his VCR, which we had alerted them, have a VCR and TV, ready for us. We walk in, we put in the cassette of the 6-minute segment from the Encounter show. He watches it, he laughs his ass off, and he shakes our hands and says, you guys have a deal. We walk out. I turn to Paul. Paul had written for Twilight Zone, the reboot of Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. I guess there's a third reboot in the making. But so he had been around and he'd sold projects before. And I turned to him and I go, did that just happen? And he goes, yeah. I said, is that normal? He goes, no. So it became something that later on in life in different projects I've done in different genres, I've never had the same success. This thing seemed to have its own, it seemed to be on a treadmill that I was just a part of, being dragged along, which has never happened in any other genre that I've worked in. And so we now have to find a network that is going to air this. And then based on that, they pre-sell it and pull together the funding, and we go out and make this thing. So we went to Fox, which was really funny because there's this guy, Mike Darnell, who was adamant that this type of project, to do something like this, a TV movie version of our original, that people would lose careers over. And I think the meeting ended with me spilling coffee on his white polar bear rug. But it did not go well. And so the irony is that only a year later, they did Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't lose his career, so I don't know that had any merit. So we went to UPN. They had just started their network, and they're like, hey, we love this. The woman who was running it, Lucy something, I forget her last name, she was all into it. They were like kids giggling. This is so much fun. Can't wait to do this. But we need a few months because we're still getting the network and we're still building what the TV movie division is going to be. But we want to work with you, and we want to do a series of movies with you guys because you guys seem like you're doing some really fun stuff. So we're like, oh my God, this is great. So months go by, nothing's going on. Dick Clark, those guys, they get impatient. And so we go to Showtime. Showtime's like, let's do it. Great, let's make a deal. And now I learned the two worst words in the film business affairs. They hold on to it for 6 months. At that point, Dick Clark and everyone says, enough. And we reach back out to UPN. You guys still interested? And they're like, oh my God, yes. So, and we're ready now. So we go back there, make a deal. The budget now is $1.25 million. And we get further news that we're going to be shooting up in Vancouver. And so the budget's going to be really about 1.6, maybe 1.7 because of the value of the dollar.
Wow.
So I have my first anxiety attack in
Yeah.
my life. I'm freaking out because I don't know how to spend 1.25, let alone 1.7. This shouldn't cost that much.
Right, right.
And I start thinking, why don't we just show the original? It's already been done.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not really appreciating what all the enthusiasm is. I swear to God, I'm kind of like, it's already been done. It's a gimmick. We're going to redo this. Okay. All right. Now they want it all scripted. We're going to go up and we're going to hire Canadian actors. I'm like, all right, let's do this in a week. So instead of one night, it's in a week, but that's still not enough to eat up the money. Mm-hmm. I'm like, let's get the guys from the X-Files to do the Ship and Aliens. So we get them. We've got Clyde Klotz to do the ship. He later on married Gillian Anderson, and they had a kid together. And then Toby Landala, who did all the creature effects for the X-Files. He does the masks and the gloves. And so we have that, and then we hire these actors, and it's about 2 weeks before we're about to shoot, a week and a half before we're about to shoot. And then we get word that the script that we have, the 90-page script, is timing out at only 45 minutes.
Oh, no.
Which you know what that means, doing theater. Not good. It means that the running time of it is half the length. And so it means that you now have to literally double the length of the script.
Oh, God, that seems like a nightmare to me. I mean, a lot of writers would look at that as an opportunity, but when you're this close to crunch time of, like, filming, I can't imagine. Like, what the hell are you going to do? You have to create a whole new story.
It's literally a whole new movie. So I wrote a whole new outline. I gave half of it to Paul, and he wrote that half, and I wrote the other half. I wrote including the Tommy confessional stuff.
My name is Thomas McPherson. We were attacked by aliens. I think they killed my brothers, Kurt and Brian McPherson. I don't want to die. I'm really afraid. I don't think we're gonna make it. I miss my dad. I wish he were here.
Which I believe was the first time a confessional had ever been done before in this genre. And so now the script was 145 pages or 160 pages. And the greatest compliment we got was that the actors were so into this. And by the way, it was called the McPherson Tape at the time. It was not called Alien Abduction, Incident Lake County. Mm-hmm. So there was this mystique around it. Even when they were shooting the reboot of Outer Limits and Stargate, I think that was being shot around there as well. It was like, this is the cool thing that because again, had been no found footage thing. They thought we were doing some weird shit. And so we go to shoot, so we rewrite. And so this actress sends me a card, and in the card are her tickets for the World Series. And she says, I want to let you know that I am a huge, I forgot who was in the World Series at that time. She goes, I'm a huge fan of them, but I'm a bigger fan of our project. So I am not going to be going, and I'm going to be learning my new lines.
Wow. What a testament.
Oh my God. That was just the sweetest gift that you could ever get. And it kind of fueled us to feel even more empowered of what we were doing. So we get them all together and we shoot this thing. And I am remembering that the last shooting day, Friday, I remember we were only able to do 1 or 2 takes a night. And I think it was only 1 take a night. And so on Friday, we do our take, and it did not work. The energy was really lackadaisical. It was depressing. It had no sense of urgency. It was awful. And by the way that we shot this was, I didn't play the kid this time. We hired a real DP to come in. Mm-hmm. And the actor who played Tommy, the kid, we had him dressed in an outfit that the cameraman was wearing what the kid was wearing. And so the actor would be holding on to the back buckle, the back belt of the cameraman guy, feeding all the actors the lines. So all the actors had to not look at Christian Ayers, who was playing the Tommy. They had to look at the cameraman. So that was a real challenge for them. So I'm sequestered in a room in this property that we own for this, and I am telling the director, like a sporting event, pan right, go up to them, and pan over to your left. So I'm giving all the direction, and that's it. And then I can hear what the actors are saying. And then I'm cueing the ADs. And so that was the apparatus that we had in order to cover this. So here we are Friday. We shoot it awful, horrendous. We're out of time. That's it. It's a union crew. End of story. If it was a non-union crew, we could keep going. So I go to the actors, and I'm going, what happened? What's going on here? Let's talk about this. And they're like, yeah, we don't know. We're just this is so depressing, blah, blah. And I'm talking to them, and then I realize what the problem is. They all know that the men, the brothers who took off, are not coming back. Mm. And so I tell them, all right, I'm going to rewrite the script. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to need you to just roll with me, but they're going to come back. So just know that they're going to come back, okay? Just like, we have it. So we go off and shoot it, and we beg the crew to give us another take because we're going to go into like golden hour or whatever. And they're so in it, they're like, fine, because, we don't have the budget for it, even though we're $500,000 under budget. Once you sign off on a budget with Dick Clark, there's no contingency. You do it. That's it. So they all agreed to do that. All the actors, everyone, again, which was a great compliment to their commitment to it. And we shot it again. I did not bring him back. So it ends in the way that was, kind of shock and dismay and everything, and worked well. And so, kudos to them and big thanks to them for doing that. So we shoot this thing, and then we find out on that Friday or the Thursday before we find out that everyone at the network got fired. So we don't know what that means. All we know is that we're almost done with the film, and we've got foreign sales already paid for, so we know we don't have to worry about UPN. We finish it, we come back, we're feeling elated, exhausted, but elated, and then they tell us that they want to see in 2 weeks' time, they want a finished cut with all the visual special effects, all the CGI. So we race around the clock to get it. Dick Clark wants it off their calendar. So now we're at 1997.
Okay.
So in December 1997, we have to get it all done so they can air this in January. And so we finish it in 2 weeks and give it to them. And the head of the TV movie department at UPN, who did not get fired, John Levoff, he calls and he says, all right, I just got the executive screening. And we're like, okay. And he says, I'm just letting you know, I'm going to be honest with you, that was the worst effing screen of my career. They were literally throwing food at the screen, he said. Literally throwing, I don't know, it was a banana or a Snickers bar, but they were throwing food at it, saying, how could the people who ran the network beforehand, how could they think this was even a good idea on any level? You shot, the first time that, you'd shot a movie with, no-name actors, 20-minute takes, you shot it on digital video. What the hell is that? So we did everything. It was the antithesis of a TV movie in their eyes, because it had, again, it's good to be new and be fresh. It's not good to be too early with new and fresh. And so they fired us. Everyone got fired. And they brought in this woman who came in, and she cut it from 2 hours to an hour. And we had interstitial interviews in it of these fake experts. Well, this woman brought in real experts, including Dr. Stanton Friedman and Yvonne Smith, Daryl Sims, and a few others, and did interviews with them and then edited it into our show as if they were commenting on the veracity of what we had done, lending credibility to it within the UFO community. When I heard about this, I was shocked.
I think since thousands of people disappear every year, we cannot rule out that having happened, there may be earthlings in alien zoos or enjoying themselves in an alien playground. I don't know. But in general, of course, we get our information from people who come back.
And I didn't hear about this until after it aired. In fact, when it aired, that was the first time that I saw it. So I'm watching the movie, and all of a sudden there's Stanton Friedman, and it knocked me on my ass. I could not believe that they had done this, because I'm a huge fan of the genre, of the phenomenon, I should say. And so here were these people that were taking my idols and, perverting it into this, and also tarnishing the credibility of this. Now, there were credits at the end of the film, so it gave away that here was, the suspension of disbelief so you can fully engage in this cinematic experience. That was all set up. That was all the parameters. But once you put in people, real people, and you eject them into it, and you don't tell them.
Unbeknownst to them, yeah. Unbeknownst
to them, now you're a scammer. And so I was shocked by that. In fact, I'd heard Stanton on Coast to Coast, and someone called in and said, they were mentioning this, and he's like, what? And then he was wondering if he had a case to sue them, and I was hoping he would. He did not. But, Stanton gets called to do many things. He doesn't know, he can't track all this stuff. But anyway, so the 2-hour version was released in Europe and Canada and continued to play for many years. And that did fantastic. And so the happy ending in all this is that even though it was cut down to an hour, they had aired a second time and put even more footage in with the help of secret government declassified unscrambling technology.
Right. I remember that. Even as a 14-year-old, I was like, what?
Yeah, that was a mouthful. It's like, okay. And so because what had happened was when it aired the first time, it was a Tuesday primetime show. It got them their highest ratings. So they put more footage in, did even better, and then the head of the network said that show will never be on this goddamn network again. And so we were like, we were blackballed there. And the fact that it did well, really didn't look good for this, the new guy who was running things. So it never aired again. We didn't, all the deals that we were going to do with them for other TV movies, all of that went away, even though we hit the mark and scored beyond everyone's, expectations. That's just how the business works. So that kind of, we thought, again, well, that's it. End of story. Flash forward to a few years later. And by the way, after the credits were on there that said Alien 1 and 2 played by so-and-so, there was an online poll. It was the first time that a network had ever done this. But they did an online poll asking if people believed it was real or not. Again, this is after all the credits. 49%, I have a printout of it, 49% of those who took the poll believed it was still real.
Wow.
Which I thought there was a glitch in the system. I didn't believe it. I was sure that was, some miscalculation. So a few years go by, and in between that time, a year and a half later, Blair Witch comes out. And now it's this accepted new technique that's being used. And hats off to those guys who did a great job. They did better than I did in a few areas. And they also submitted to Sundance, which I wish we had done. That was a genius idea. I underestimated this every step along the way.
Again, you were ahead of the game. You didn't know. Yeah, there was no path being paved for sure.
No, and so so that came out, and then others came out, and it started this kind of whole thing rolling. And then over the years, I would have people reach out to me, and then now email was up and running, and then I started getting calls from friends of mine saying, hey, you need to Google yourself.
Yeah, this is where the conspiracy aspect sort of comes in with you. You became like a conspiracy theorist stream online. I remember going to these websites and these forums. I think it was called like the Para forums back in the day. And this is long before I'd ever been introduced to you. And I'm like, oh man, this dude's working for the government. So yeah, you got to run me through some of these incredible things people were saying about you.
Well, the part 2 of the act 2 is that it ran away from me. It got away from us, and took a life of its own. And I went and Googled myself the first time I had done that I'm willing to admit. And I just put in Dean Alioto, aliens or UFOs. And then I found hundreds of pages of people who were fans of the film, which was great. And then I clicked on a few of these and discovered that there were some conspiracy theories about this. And most of them were purporting that it was actually real. That was the first level. And I thought, oh, well, maybe that survey that they did, online survey, was accurate. Maybe people do believe that. But that makes no sense because we had credits there. We let the cat out of the bag. And then I dug in deeper to some of the conspiracy theories out there and saw that they were aware that this was a remake, and they believed that maybe the second one was fake, but the original was real. And the next layer down was that I had been hired by the government to remake the original to throw people off the authenticity of the original, which I took. I mean, I looked at this, and it was, again, part of me is, I feel like Forrest Gump going through this, experience. I feel like it's carrying me more than I'm doing anything to it. So I kind of felt like, a spectator in a way. And so I will admit I enjoyed the absurdity of it. And when all of my friends and other filmmakers would be like, dude, this is so great. And what a weird social experience this is, experiment this is. So it went on. And then I started being concerned about how this was affecting my, favorite phenomenon and the supporters of that, the UFO and alien phenomenon. And so I started going on these sites, and I became a debunker of my own hoaxes. And so it became this thing that I would do kind of as a pastime, where I'd go on and say, guys, look, this isn't real. Here's some behind the scenes footage. There's the aliens. It's the same place, blah, blah, blah. And most of the sites rolled with it and were grateful for it. I think Bad Movie Planet was the first one I hit. And then there was Project Absurd. And then it went all the way to the point where last year I was doing, I think it's called Found Footage Critic, which is a great site. These guys are terrific. And so I kept doing that. And then I looked at the comments, and I saw that people were not ready to let go of this conspiracy. They were holding on to it tight, man. And no matter what I did, I was considered to be a fraud, part of this disinformation campaign. And it started to kind of, at some point, I just had to kind of let it go and say, all right, well, what I can do is I can shut down websites, and I can shut down YouTube that puts up this stuff and is purporting it to be real. So the YouTube copyright infringement department and I have gotten to know each other really well. And so
I'm sure.
Spent a lot of time. Once a month, I go and I see who's been putting up my film and saying this and that. And I nuke it. I take it down and started doing some podcasts and stuff as well to say, hey, this isn't real. And, it's, again, huge compliment to the cast and crew. Mm-hmm. Again, I kind of thought that was it. That was the end of that chapter. And I had been invited to talk about it, and I'd been invited to go to conventions, UFO conventions and stuff. And I steered clear of that because I have to admit, I was worried that there would be some overzealous proponents for this being actual nonfiction,
right,
that they would come after me. And so I was kind of scared about that. And so I kind of, shied away from that until this year.
That's kind of where I started corresponding with you, because I'd spoken at a convention last year, the International UFO Congress in Arizona, and I saw the speakers list this year, saw you on there, started bringing back all these memories about your film, and I was like, oh my God, I got to talk to this guy. So
PTSD memories.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, I can't tell you, the sleepless nights after watching that and recording it, on my old VHS. I think I wore that thing out, just rewinding and rewinding. I never told you this, but I brought that bootleg VHS into my middle school class, I believe, and showed it to my entire class.
Oh, no way.
And again, I am one of those culprits that did not show them the credits afterwards and said, watch this. So I may have fueled those those conspiracies, man. So I do apologize. But back to 2018. So this is what, the 25th anniversary of the original film. Is that correct?
It is. It's so funny that you say that you showed it. There is apparently the subculture of kids who do that. In fact, if you go online, this is the only one that I've let have my film remain there. There are these high school kids, and they interview their friends about UFOs, ask them questions and stuff, and then they sit them down to watch my original movie. And then they videotape their reaction. Apparently, there's a whole subculture of videos where people do reactions of anything. And this has been hijacked into that subculture. And I find that fantastic because, at the end, most of these people, they're letting them know, but it's kind of getting their reaction and seeing what they think. So again, I get kind of the craftsmanship, or we get to test the fabric if this thing still is working, if it's still an effective story.
Right.
So that's hysterical that you did that even back then. You might be epicenter of all the conspiracies of that. But anyway,
maybe.
Yeah. So I got somehow Alejandro Rojas, who does the International UFO Congress Convention now. We connected, and he, through actually Jennifer Stein, who did a great documentary on Travis Walton. Mm-hmm. He said, the idea was that this is the 25th anniversary coming up. This was like about 8 months ago. He said, the 25th anniversary is coming up of this film. It'd be great to have you come out and speak about this and maybe show the film again. And I thought, yeah, again, I'm nervous about this. And I told Alejandro, and Alejandro, by the way, is one of the coolest guys that I've met. He's very funny. There's the saying that I learned. It's like dropped every 10 minutes, I think, at UFO conventions, which is rabbit hole. Don't go. Here's a rabbit hole. Oh, if you go into the rabbit hole here, it's really deep. And he and I both subscribe to the belief that you never want to go too far down the rabbit hole. You always want to leave crumbs to get yourself out, because it can go really deep and you can get lost in it, and then you've lost all objectivity. Well, he said, I think you're underestimating the UFO community, because they do have a sense of humor. They do have, they can appreciate what you were doing, and not that you were trying to prank anyone, what your initial intentions were. They get it. And at the end of the day, it's a fun story. Trust me. He says they're going to, so with his promising of it being fine, I agreed to go out and to show it. And he said, I want you to show it, but I also want you to talk about it. So I want you to give a lecture. And I was like, oh, cool. So would you like a Q&A? That would be fun. It'd be great to get Stanton Friedman to come out, or have you, moderate it. Because I've done film festivals where we do Q&As after. And he's like, we don't really do that. We have panels, which I want to get you on, where we do that. But no, this is you lecturing for 75 minutes, just you. Which I had never done before. Yeah. So I'm like, so I tell him, I go, all right, yeah, I'll just go up and I'll, wing it. Sure, we'll do it. Now he hears wing it, and it's echoing in his ear. And so he calls me like 2 months before the convention, and he says, okay, so you feel good about your PowerPoint presentation, your keynote thing? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's just going to be me talking. And he said, oh, you're not going to have any slides or anything? And I go, well, no, I mean, people know about it, right? I don't have to. I can just do that. But I go, hey, it'll be fine. And he goes, okay. And so I get off the phone, and I'm like, he didn't seem okay about that. I better do some homework. So I go online and I take a look at other international, other Congress speakers. Mm-hmm. And I see that these guys are banging out these pictures and footage. They've got the keynote. It's like a TED Talk.
Yep.
And even more so with it. And so I start to freak out, and I realize I've underestimated what the expectations are of me here. And pressure sets in, and so I cram, like a midterm. I'm cramming to get all these pictures and stuff and tell this story and have something of a script that I can work off of. And I end up pulling together about 72 pictures and about 5 video clips together, including a clip of Shirley McCullough's great audition, which no one had seen before, by the way. That was the first time anyone had seen any of this stuff. And so, I put all together and nervously set out to speak to these people and got there. And the first thing they did is they put me on a podcast that Martin Willis did, our podcast UFO. And so I get there, and the first one there, and I'm like, all right, well, this is my first, UFO podcast. This should be fine. And then in walks Jennifer Stein. It's like, hey, Jennifer. And then in walks Travis Walton, and then Nick Pope, and then Stanton Friedman, and Catherine Marsden, and who else? I mean, the usual suspects come in. And so Stanton sits directly across from me. Now, I haven't ever spoken with Stanton, and I'm a little bit nervous because I'm thinking, this guy was done wrong by my film.
Right,
and
right.
He's got beef with me. And I actually sent out an email, 2 emails, in fact, over the years trying to say, hey, I'm sorry that this happened to you. I had nothing to do with it. No response. So I see him, and before we start, I go, hey, Stanton, my name's Dean Alioto. And he goes, uh-huh. And I said, well, I did a film called Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County. And he goes, uh-huh. And I go, well, you were in it. And he goes, right. And I go, well, it wasn't real. It was actually fake footage, and they cut you into it. And he's like, like, I'm sure this does happen. And I go, oh, so you don't remember? And I go, nice meeting you, Stanton. So we start the podcast, and everything goes well. And so that kind of calmed me before I had to go up and speak. And so I go up on stage and do my presentation. The first thing happens is this huge, loud feedback hits. I mean, like deafening. And so I said, it sounds like the aliens will be taking control of this presentation. I guess my reputation precedes me. And we had like close to 1,000 people in the auditorium, and they laughed. And I knew at that point, all right, they're going to meet me halfway in the bridge, so I may be safer. And so went ahead and gave my presentation, and I told Alejandro, I said, I'm not going to do this unless I can have levity to this, because it's just so absurd. You can't take this, too serious. I don't take myself serious. Over the past 25 years, I've received countless letters and emails from journalists, UFOologists, educators, and UFO fans, all wanting to know the true story behind my films. I'm going to read you right now one of my favorite emails. Dude, me and my friends were talking about scary things that we've seen, and I remembered Alien Abduction. The incident in Lake County was the scariest thing I've ever seen. I remember watching it in my basement all alone at night with the lights out. He doesn't say how old he is. Now I need to show my friends, but mostly show my girlfriend, who gets really horny when she's scared. Okay. Please help me. Contact me and tell me how I can get the video. It's really important to me. I will be checking back 500 to 600 times a day to see if you respond. I am just trying to get the point across that this is very important to me. Signed, Peter. Yeah, Peter, I'm getting the sense that it is very important to you. This was not my intention when I made the film, but good luck. The truth of the matter is, this wasn't like by some intelligent design. It was just kind of a desperate need to get my first film done, and it became all this. So the audience was really cool, very fun. I found the community to have great range with, their belief systems and being appreciative of the journey of a filmmaker. And so we did that, and then it seemed to go really well, showed the film, and at the end of the film, Alejandro got up and he said, how many people, even after hearing Dean speak and everything, still believe that this might be real? And then there was like dead silence, and then in the very back of the room, 3 people raised their hands.
Oh, God, you gotta be kidding me.
I swear to God, I swear. And these were the 3 that were willing to do that. And I said, come and see me after the Q&A here, and I'll give you free signed copies of the movie. No one came to claim them. So
those DVDs are bugged.
Right. Well, you can implant DVD alien implants.
It's incredible, man, that like even after seeing your lecture, all this time, that people are still willing to believe. And that's something I want to talk to you about here in a moment. But I know, speaking to you, right after the Congress, you had some pretty interesting experiences with individuals while you were there, like talking to certain people about their beliefs and whatnot. So, I mean, I'd love to hear a little bit about how people reacted, after knowing that these films are out there, having seen them, and then hearing the man who had created it, not, found footage, filmed it, what they thought about it, that whole idea of people still believe this thing.
Well, when I had gotten there, I decided that there was a director, a documentary filmmaker, George Hickenlooper, who did the behind-the-scenes for Apocalypse Now, The Hearts of Darkness, one of the greatest documentaries of a film of all time. Eleanor Coppola actually shot it, and these guys directed it and later on and edited it, etc. George I'd worked with before, and George is like, you have to do a documentary about this experience, this whole thing, because this is insane. This is just too much fun.
Yeah.
And I kept it in my mind, and again, I'm still too close to it, and so I thought, all right, this is kind of monumental as far as bookending this, an opportunity that would be monumental to be able to wrap it up and come full circle with this. So I thought for the 25th anniversary, I would shoot behind the scenes footage of me doing this, which I did. And the first thing I did is when I got there that night, I saw these guys sitting around a fire, this outdoor patio campfire. And they were shooting the shit and having a couple brews. And so I sat down. I said, hey, guys, how you doing? Older guys. And I said, so what brought you here? And then they proceed to tell me that one of them tells me that he's a Vulcan and that when he was younger, his parents had his ears pinned. So that's why you can't see it anymore. Another guy tells me that his ankle got all jacked up, but it's cool because the aliens healed it. And so I'm listening to this and I'm going, okay, so this has to be one end of the spectrum. And then I'm talking to other people who are telling me, it seems every hour I bump into someone who wants to tell me about their UFO abduction experience or seeing a UFO, and varying degrees of credibility. But all of them, I believe that they've seen this and have had this experience. And some of the stories are like the details just, put the hair on the back of my neck up. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely something going on here. So you got the barrage of both sides of that. And my girlfriend, Allie, came to visit. I was there I was there for a full week. She came about 2.5 days before I left. And she came. She lasted 20 minutes and was like, this is overwhelming. I got to go. To the pool. I got to go to the pool. Hang out there. Good luck.
It's hard, man. The same thing happened to me last year with my girlfriend, and she's been supporting and enabling my UFO work for about 3 years now. Yeah. But even she had to step away many times because, again, it can, even as researchers and speakers, like, it's overwhelming. Just the wealth of information you're hearing juxtaposed to, let's be honest, like the disinformation, those who might legitimately be mentally disturbed or mentally ill or delusional, versus those who are just trying to, find meaning in their life and whatnot. It's such a breakfast club when you get there.
Well, the thing to keep in mind, in all fairness, is you can go to Comic-Con, you can go to a sports fan convention, and you're going to find, you're going to find a spectrum of the populace that are going to be there, and they're going to range from people who are in their basement and, you know, in their mother's basement, have never left, to someone who is, an ex-colonel who has firsthand credible experience. And so I take that all, I look at the whole canvas of this and take it all in as being just part of the fabric of this phenomena. And so I kind of rolled with as much as I could. Towards the end, getting a little bit exhausted, and there was this guy. He was like 6'5". I think his name was Eric. And he says, "Hey, I want to interview you." And I go, "Okay, I'm leaving, in a few hours." And he's like, "Well, let's, if you haven't had lunch, let me buy you lunch and I'll interview you." And he's got this headset around his head, so I don't know what podcast he's with, whatever. But so we go and we sit in this bar and we're eating, and then we're talking. And I look over at him and I realize this isn't a podcast. This is someone who needs to hear my story for some reason. And there's a personal reason for this. And so I say to him, so what's, what are you looking for exactly? Mm-hmm. And he said, I came across your footage when I was, this guy was probably around 48, or excuse me, around 58, maybe 55. He said, I came across your video a long time ago, the original one, and it greatly affected me. He said that a few months ago he had bumped into Tom Dongo. And I said, "Oh, yeah, Tom." And I mentioned, he goes, "Yeah." He said, "Tom was actually afraid to come out here because he thought you were mad or were going to make fun of him or something." And that broke my heart. I said, "Absolutely not." I go, "He was duped by whomever injected this, into the community. No harm, no foul. Please, if you talk to him again." I go, "How did you meet him?" He says, "Well, I talked to him through like a mutual friend, and I mentioned this tape. I said, 'Hey, have you ever heard about this tape?' And he said, 'Yes.' And that actually Tom still believes that parts of it are real." And I could tell that this guy was really troubled, this guy Eric, because he was like, "I missed your presentation, but I heard that you were saying that, that it wasn't real." Now, I got to tell you, this has been something that I've been following and tracking and doing my research. And you seem like a very legitimate person and a straight shooter. So can you just walk me through this? So I walked him through it. And I said, "Here's what happened and everything else." And I pull up some pictures. I said, "You can go here, da-da-da." And there was a look of kind of relief and disappointment that washed over him. And that's the danger, too, is that, it's kind of like telling people there's no Santa Claus. Right. So as much as I want to say, hey, back on Earth, this is how the reality is. But at the same time, I don't want people spending bandwidth on tracking down this or doing research on something that's fictional. That to me is perverting the intention of this. It's just entertainment. At the end of the day, it was meant to be entertainment. So I tell him this, and he said, "I have to say, I believe you 99%. I'm going to reserve 1%, but I got to say, I'm pretty much convinced that this isn't. And thank you for taking that off my plate of stuff to be, concerned with and worried about." And he said, "I'd heard the conspiracies too, about the one and you and the ex-mayor." Mm-hmm. And I said, whoa, back up. Being an ex-mayor?
What?
Well, so in the 70s, there was a Mayor Alioto, Joseph Alioto, who was a very popular mayor. In fact, he was being groomed for the presidency. And unfortunately, this publication that was as popular in its day as Life magazine, called Look magazine, published a story. They were not doing well with their subscription, and they published a story trying to link the former mayor with the mafia. And it was a desperate attempt, and they had done that with other stories, and they had no real evidence for this. And so the thing was that the mayor was an even more competent lawyer than he was a mayor. And so he sued them for $20 million and won, which put Look magazine out of business. So it's just a side note. So the theory, and this was all new to me, hadn't heard this one before, and this goes at the top of the theories. This is my favorite. the theory was that the mayor was my father, which he would have been my grandfather, but okay. It was like, go on. And they said, okay, so because he was a politician, he was also linked with the government, and they had gotten to you through your father, Joe Alioto, and had hired you and engineered you to do all these, to speak about the film and take credit for this. That kind of, it knocked me for a loop. I laughed my ass off, and then at the same time, it was a real eye-opener of how fragile truth is and how it can be nudged on one side of the wall so easily and can propagate into more and more stuff. So now the truth has to prove itself. So you're guilty until proven innocent. Mm-hmm. And so, that's a real kind of, mere reflection of what's going on right now with fake news and everything else. So why should this, the UFO genre be any different, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. And like we'd spoken before, and this is something that I've taken to heart that you mentioned is when you have this belief system or you're trying to back up certain claims about things, like, you're responsible for that. Just because we have these Stephen Greers or these Corey Goods, yes, I'm going to name them, these people out there touting what I personally believe to not be factual information or straight up hoaxing. It's not, like, you can't blame them. They're going to take advantage of these people's belief systems, and that's their thing. Hopefully karma will catch up to them. But like you had said to me, and I think this is key, is that you need to be responsible for the information you're consuming and what you decide to do with that. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is a broad example, but can we really blame World War II on Hitler? Or was it a wish fulfillment by people who manifested this person who was just a conduit? Where does the accountability lie? There's a great quote, I forgot who said it, but, the worst thing man can do, the way for evil to succeed is when man does nothing. And so I think that anytime there's something that is saying, here's a fantastical element, too good to be true. First of all, 99% of the time it is going to be too good to be true. But it's got to be, you can't say it's got to be user friendly, because there's no such thing as that when it comes to conspiracies. You have to have your own litmus test. You have to do the work. You can't be lazy. You can't just bundle it up and say, this thing is too complicated, so I'm just going to call it a conspiracy and say, oh, it's the government. And I am not saying that the government is not involved in some shady ass stuff. They are. In some of the worst ways. And there's definitely some stuff going on with regards to the UFO community, the UFO field, as we've discovered that they had yet another program, that we didn't know about, secret UFO research program. So I think that you have to be accountable. And so when people are running with this, and there's people, I'm not naming names, you are, yes, shame on them for doing that. That's a desperate move. Shame on them. But at the same time, little shame has to get doled out to the people that are holding this up and saying, yes, I will unquestionably go about this and follow it. It's kind of like the Spanish Inquisition. It's, all these other shitty ideas, bad ideas that people are doing that perpetuate this and build it up into something that becomes so strong it's hard to take down. And so, that goes with new religions as well, that pop up and everything. And it's part of, unfortunately, it's part of mankind's evolution. I mean, when we get to a place where common sense rules, I mean, are we seriously going back 5 steps and further to bring back the old flat earth theory? I mean, whoever's propagating that, I have no problem. You're an a-hole, dude.
Yeah.
Or dudette. You're a complete schmuck, and shame on you. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So now we're going to penalize any exploration beyond that. We're stuck on a flat planet that goes on. It's just.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, man. Well, I mean, we've spoken, off the air about a few UFO cases. Now, you're now in this world. You've spoken at the conferences. You've shown that you've put the time, the effort, and you've done your homework. And you're researching the UFO topic. It's come full circle. You went from creating something for purely entertainment purposes, took on its own life. You took it back. You did what you had to do in terms of that aspect of your life. And now you're looking at the UFO topic with the legitimate cases. And two of those I find extremely credible, have stood the test of time. And I was really excited to hear that you were looking into these as well. That's both the Cape Girardeau case and the Zimbabwe case. And right. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these before we start to wrap things up here.
I would love to tell you, but the government has told me not to speak.
I knew it. It always happens to me.
The thing is, I've become kind of an armchair de facto UFO researcher in doing, I realize that a third of the IP that I've created, the scripts that I've created, the 30 scripts and 6 pods that I've done have all been UFO or science fiction, alien related. And so through all that research, trying to get the most cutting edge stuff, trying to get the most interesting theories in this, I've kind of become like I said, for lack of a better term, I've become a UFO researcher, and speaking on all these panels and stuff, and kind of tossing the phenomenon back and forth with the top people from Nick Pope to Yvonne Smith and Jacques Vallée. I feel like I want to now give back to this and contribute with what I've learned, and hopefully put a new perspective on it, because there's thousands of UFO documentaries out there, and a lot of them are hitting the same note over and over. And I want to come at it from another area. Otherwise, I'll have nothing to say, and I'll just be throwing another thing on the pile. While there's great documentaries that are still always, documentarians like James Fox, who I'm a big fan of, with Out of the Blue, and I saw that are paving the way and doing some really great stuff in his new project coming up. I'm very excited to see. I've just decided that it's time to kind of take the big, files that I have of all the notes that I've made and little mini discoveries I think would be interesting to ponder. And I'm now going to be, I've started a company called Alien Content, and I've got my own Patreon site that I just started. So you can go to aliencontent.com and subscribe if you want to be a part of creating and even being a kind of a bit of a producer, helping to create this stuff. But in addition to that, I've got other projects that I'm developing at various phases that'll be geared to be studios and geared to be independent. However, what's top on my list right now that I'm really excited about is this documentary that I'm doing, where I'm going to be touching on some of the big cases, as well as looking at this phenomenon from a different perspective. And as I develop it more and feel like I have something tangible that I can lay out for you, I will keep you abreast as I go.
Awesome.
But the reaction so far has been really cool with some of the people that I want to pull into it. But the two cases, for me, there's three. We're not going to talk about Roswell because that's its own thing.
Yeah.
But there's three cases that one isn't really a case. It's just that footage. That footage being the gimbal footage that was released by the Department of Defense of seeing that ship. That to me was amazing. But the other two cases that it's just like mic drop on the whole phenomenon is the Zimbabwe case and the 1941 Missouri UFO crash of the Cape Girardeau, which for me, what's interesting about that, again, it's fresh because it's taking religion and aliens and mixing the two. Here's this Reverend William Huffman who gets a call at around 9 p.m. to come out and to do last rites on 3 crash victims from an airplane airplane crash that occurred in the forest. So he goes out there to do this, and he gets there and sees this burning wreckage, sees the fire department, sees the local police department, and he's led up to these 3 creatures that are creatures that are not humans. At first, it looked like these were burned victims, that they could have been, mutilated by the accident and everything, and quickly realizes they're not. They're the gray aliens. And he sees this ship, and he gets a chance to actually peer inside. Now, this is 41. This is before any apparatus of whether it's real or not, Majestic 12, none of that. And it's 2 years before the battle over Los Angeles has a whole other, level of credibility to that as well. And so these guys were fumbling around with this and not knowing what to do. And the military hadn't shown up, I don't think, on the scene yet. And so what happens is this guy who's taking pictures, he takes a picture of this alien who gets propped up between these two guys, and he performs last rites and everything. I think one of them was breathing. Yes, one of them was breathing, and then expires right there with him. And so he comes back home shaken, and the government showed up. There was an Air Force base nearby. They show up and swore him to secrecy. And so now he's got a wonderful relationship with his wife, and he doesn't feel comfortable having, keeping something from her. This is a man of God and believes that, that you should not be, keeping things hidden, deceitful, etc. And so he can't help himself, and he tells her this. And he says, this is the last time I'm ever going to talk about this, but this is what happened. I just came out and saw this. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't from here. Inside the ship, there was these weird kind of hieroglyphic things and etc. And so it goes away for a while. And then when they have a grandchild, whose name is Charlotte, she hears about this, and she, through her mother, through William's daughter. And the mother says, yeah, this is it. And they mention that they have this picture that they got from the person who took the photo. And so it shows the aliens propped up between these two policemen or firemen. And she's seen it firsthand. She sees this picture. And then this guy came and I think a few years later when she was a kid and wanted to borrow it. And he does, and it kind of disappears. And so this picture is still out there. And she gets more information this is Charlotte, on her grandmother's deathbed, who tells the story and says, here's what happened, and tells her more information. And so she hears the story, and she'd already seen the picture. So it wasn't like, this was something added that was fully originated then. It had already been this legacy in the family. So that to me is interesting because, again, here was this, this man of God, who comes out and he's confronted with this, and how does that affect him? Even just to do a biopic of that, I think would be fascinating. But I want to pursue that because I've not seen a lot on that. And again, there is this smoking gun of this picture that is still out there somewhere. Now, from that, we've got the 1994 Zimbabwe case, which has picked up a lot of heat over the last few years, even though it came out and John Mack was there, covering it as well, Dr. John Mack. What makes this the most profound to me alien abduction experience, period. Well, it wasn't an abduction, an alien sighting, more than any other sighting in the history of science for me, is the fact that you had 62 kids at the Ariel school, elementary school, who witnessed this. And their age ranged from 5 to 11, 12 years old. The teachers are inside for a parent-teacher a teacher conference, and they see this ship land. And I'm sure all of your listeners, I'm not telling them anything new, but for those who haven't, the ship lands, alien gets out, one of them climbs on top of it. It's a silver ship, classic silver shape. And then one of the aliens, the second alien, I'm calling them aliens, they could be, again, interdimensional beings, time travelers, we don't know.
Yeah.
But the being, right, comes up to them, standing only 3 feet away. The only thing that's dividing the space between them is on the ground, half buried, is these logs laying flat, which is kind of the perimeter, and the kids know not to go beyond that. So the alien comes up, and they say how it comes up, it's almost like it disappears and then reappears, disappears, reappears, almost like it's imitating the walking, but it's in between different frequencies in a way. And so these kids are black, white, Christian, Muslims, a great diverse group, and they communicate with this alien. And the alien's doing most of the communicating, and what they're doing is they're showing them image after image after image of the planet, of what we're doing, the technology that we have, and how we're ruining things, and how they pretty much are responsible, and they're tasked with helping to get the word out there and to be responsible for the planet, what's going on, and protect the planet. And so all of them have the same experience. They draw the same pictures. You can't get a crime scene where someone comes in and shoots someone point blank and walks out the door to look identical. These kids They're, you know, they don't have a lot of clutter up there in their brain. They remember all the details. They list it all out. Fortunately, you know, John Mack is in town in the country.
How fortuitous is that?
Yeah. And so, again, is that an accident or is that part of some divine plan? I don't know. But he comes out and interviews these kids, and there's a documentary, and you see that being done, and you see how these kids are in shock. They're still shaken. They're talking about it. This is real.
Something scared you, is that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the
Yes.
air? What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum, or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute. It was scary myself.
It was scary because you saw something yourself?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a little object hovering. It was quite big, actually, and then there was little ones all around it. We saw something silver, and then we quickly ran to the logs, and we saw a silver thing, and we saw a man standing next to it.
What did it feel like when he was looking at you?
I felt scared.
It felt scared? What was scary about it?
Well, I felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
This is not, you know, some, you know, school prank or whatever. It's traumatizing just to watch it. And so flash forward 24 years later, and a lot of these kids are doing things like Emily, who was one of them. She is now involved heavily in nonprofit. All of these guys are doing things that are related to helping, to some degree, helping the planet and bring awareness. So, you know, when I look at that, I always jump in my mental helicopter and I fly above it all and I go, okay, all right, let's look at the big picture here. And looking down, I hearken back to Nick Pope, who, when asked about, do you think disclosure is going to happen or not? He says it's going to happen, but it's not going to be a capital D. It'll be a small lowercase d. And while I don't think that the government's ever going to come out and say, all right, here's what's been going on, I think that how I interpret that is that disclosure is happening, cutting out the middleman. Why go through the government? Let's take the cause of the people. So I think that the beings, whatever they are, who appreciate our planet apparently more than we do, I think that they're going directly to the people and to the humans, if you will, and are pleading their case. And if you believe Yvonne Smith and her statistics and what she's heard and her research dictates, she believes 1 in 50 people have had experiences that they either remember or don't, but are affected by it. And so the word apparently is getting out there. It's just not going through, you know, the bureaucracy. And so when you look at it with that lens, you realize that we've already achieved this. And so now you go, okay, so what is the end game here? Well, the end game here is for us to cherish our planet, you know, to look at it and say, oh my God, you know, this is a living, breathing organism. And I don't know how to do that. I'm really trying to do that with cinema. I encourage people all the time to travel, because that's the best way for you to realize that we're all one organism. You know, astronauts have gotten that so profoundly, that experience of looking at the planet from a distance. When my daughter was in her teens, I took her to Europe because I wanted her to be able to take it all in and realize, you know, she's a part of all of this. You're not secluded to your one area. It's not America and them and anyone else. It's all one big planet, one big population, one big person, and this planet is just as much us as them. So it's very simple. Just take care of Mother Earth. You know, at the end of the day, that's it. Treat each other as you will. And so, you know, if you want to say, well, it's anti-Christian or whatever, well, what did Christ teach? Teach others as you want to be treated. Teach the planet as you want the planet to treat you.
That's a good point, man.
On my soapbox. Sorry about that.
Well, no, it's not even. It's logical. When you look at most major religions, the core message of all of them is just love others, you know? And, you know, that's not getting too love and light or new agey. Like, it's just love your fellow man, your fellow woman, and everything will be okay. Love Mother Earth. It seems so simple. And we've complicated it so much throughout history. And whether one believes in destiny or not, like, we have a lot of power to change that. And if we have some sort of outside source, let's call it alien right now, just for our purposes, kind of nudging us along and saying, hey, be careful. Like, we've been through this before. We know it's going to happen. Like you said, maybe they're from our future or interdimensional, whatever it may be. It appears they are trying to send a message to us through these small disclosures, as Nick Pope or as you have said, of just do it. Just be kind to one another. And like you said, here in America right now, it's been a little tough to love one another. Politics have gotten in the way, but we're all still here and we're all still talking. And that's a good thing in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little too optimistic. I don't know.
No, well, here the thing is, I believe that there's been other civilizations here. There have been other species here. There have been Cro-Magnons. We've had other intelligence group here. And we don't know if they're, Atlanteans, if these guys were, more intelligent than we were. So you look at that and you go, okay, what can we learn from that? If the aliens are coming, I don't want them to save us. I want them to be teachers, which is what they're doing and which is what we do when we go into some good effect, some horrible effect, where we go into other, like third world countries and we're helping and we're showing them how to have their own wells. And, it's the old show someone how to fish, and not give them fish for a day, show them how to fish. They can, take care of themselves onward. I want them to be teachers. If anything, we have to be accountable. Mm-hmm. If you had a teacher that stepped in and said, no, 2 and 2 isn't 5, I'm just going to do this, that would be defeating the whole purpose of evolution. And so right now, you look at where we are, and we're in a very, very strange position. And again, I'm just talking about this current intelligent species on this planet. There's Moore's Law, which got all out of whack, where you track the progression of evolution with the progression of technical evolution. And you see that in the 50s and with integrated circuits, it started to diverge and separate. And so now Moore's Law has got to the point where it's flat line, completely vertical. It's heading straight up. Mm-hmm. So now we're doing things that is beyond our evolution and beyond our maturity as a species. And so we can basically do godlike things. And so, at the end of the day, I'm rooting for Earth because Earth is the fertilizer that everything comes from. So if that means that we're going to nuke the planet, we're not going to kill it. We're going to destroy ourselves and, unfortunately, the lower species here. And then a new species will evolve. Evolution will bring the next one up, and hopefully they learn. But I don't want it to get to that point. I have a daughter. I have faith that we're going to find our way, but we are stumbling big time. And maybe the pendulum, with where we are right now with politics, needs to swing so far the other way that it comes back. But I don't want it to be – it won't sustain itself if it's just done with some slogan. It's got to be done in a way that is something that everyone feels instinctively, intuitively, innately is right. And again, it comes down to the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. Very simple.
I love it, man. Oh, wow. I can't think of a better way to wrap this up, man. That again, like this journey you and I went on tonight was I anticipated just talking about your films, but this manifested into something way more profound and powerful. And that I can't ask for more than that. I learned so much tonight. And if what you're saying tonight on this interview is any indication of what's to come in terms of your work in the UFO field, outside the UFO field, I'm going to follow you all the way, man. Take my money, take my time. I can't wait to see what you come up with. I have to ask, where can we find out more about what you're doing?
Well, you can go to... Right now, you can go to UFOabductionmovie.com. That is the website that you can go and actually, as I mentioned earlier, I've digitally remastered my film. And so people can get the DVD or they can download it as well. If you order the DVD, I'll do a signed copy of it for you. You can see my stuff there. You can also go to deanalioto.com. And that has a sampling of some of the projects that I'm developing. And then you can also go to aliencontent.com, which again is the production venture that I'm doing, where I'm going to be doing both fictional films dealing with real themes that are being researched in UFO and aliens, as well as hardcore documentaries, working with some of the the best people and exciting people in the field.
Doing your part in every facet, getting us those small D's of disclosure, and just opening us all up to new opportunities when it comes to this topic. So I have to thank you so much for agreeing to come on today, for pleading your case, and for showing us that you are a true UFO buff through and through, man. So Dean, thank you so much for joining me on Somewhere in the Skies.
Oh, please. It was my pleasure. Ryan, this is great. Keep up the good work, dude. Thank you for having me on. This was fun, dude. This was fun.
All right, that is it for this week's episode. Past episodes, articles, and contact information to suggest topics and guests can all be found at the website, somewhereintheskies.com. We're also on Twitter @SomewhereSkies and Instagram @SomewhereSkiesPod. We also have a very active Facebook group. Just search for Somewhere in the Skies Podcast. Be sure to check out the Somewhere in the Skies store with all types of merchandise. Visit teepublic.com and search for the Sprague 51 store. That's teepublic.com. To help the show grow in quality and quantity and to receive rewards such as bonus episodes, content, one-on-one Skype sessions, merch, and much, much more, consider becoming a Patreon subscriber today. To learn more and to contribute, visit patreon.com/somewhereskies. Once again, I have to thank all of my new KGRA radio listeners. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you'll join me next week for another episode. And to all of you out there, remember, keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies.
Somewhere in the Skies is produced by Third Kind Productions in association with the Entertainment One Podcast Network. To learn more, visit entertainmentonepodcast.com.